It's Monday. We're open. Welcome to another edition of Mondays in Midtown. I'm Mark Zinn. Last week, Chris Hansen from Dateline NBC came to St. Louis University as part of the Great Issues Committee speaking series. He was the first speaker. We sat down with him with an exclusive interview. Here's what he had to say about To Catch a Predator. Mr. Hansen, welcome to Mondays in Midtown.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it.
You've done a lot of things with journalism and throughout the world, all over the world. If you had to pinpoint one single story that you think had the most effect on the world, people's worldview, if you will, what would that one story be?
Well, I think undoubtedly the one story that's had the most impact is To Catch a Predator, for many different reasons. People identified with it. People saw the danger out there. It created an awareness and a dialogue that didn't exist before. And quite honestly, it's dramatic television.
A lot of the college students here, they all know you because of To Catch a Predator.
Absolutely.
And do you think that it has a negative impact sometimes, like with episodes like South Park that we were talking about earlier?
I don't think so. Look, if they make fun of you on South Park or on The Simpsons or on Saturday Night Live, to me that means you've had impact. Mm-hmm. And I've got very thick skin. And the best part of guys your age getting into To Catch a Predator, even though maybe some guys and gals aren't watching it completely for journalistic reasons, is that it's got them watching television news magazines. And the same college students who watch that will follow me into investigations on identity theft, terrorist groups, the mortgage meltdown, all these things. And because you are that demographic, it can be fickle. And if you get people to start watching your work at 20, 21, 22, you have them for 20 years. And that's significant.
Well, you got us sold, our generation at least.
Yeah.
You got me sold. I do like the investigation series. But you talk to some journalists, some even professors. They're like, well, it's kind of like gotcha journalism. You kind of To Catch a Predator isn't how you're supposed to do it. What would you say to that?
Well, I would say that it was a very innovative crime, and we had to be very innovative while investigating it. If I went to my boss and said, look, we need to do a story on online predators, but all I've got is some dramatic interviews and some video of people typing on a keyboard, that's not going to carry it. We had the opportunity to use decoys who knew what they were doing, to use our investigative skills, hidden cameras and microphones, and really show in real time how this works and who's involved. And at the end of the day, we raised awareness and created a dialogue that didn't exist before. And I know there are people who raise questions about whether or not it was appropriate to, have law enforcement do a parallel investigation and arrest these guys after we had done our interviews with them. And it's open for debate. But what we did accomplish, and what we are very strict about at Dateline NBC, is being completely transparent about our methodology. You may say, I don't like that, but you can say that because we told you exactly how we did it. And that's important, and we do that every time.
So do you have any regrets with To Catch a Predator looking back on it?
None whatsoever, none whatsoever. I think it was a story of our times. I think it reminded us that enterprise reporting, impact journalism, stories well told using hidden cameras in cases where it's appropriate are very important, whether it's this or whether it's any of the other topics we're currently working on.
Get people in college, younger people, interested in local media. They're not going to watch, assume they're not going to watch local news or read the paper. How do they get information about local?
Well, you got to make it relevant. You have to explain it in a way that people can understand it. For instance, when we did the mortgage meltdown, right? I didn't know what a collateralized debt obligation was 5 years ago. I didn't know what a credit default swap was 5 years ago. I knew what a credit default swap was because a guy who also has a kid who plays lacrosse with my kid came up to me at a game and said, I can't get this stuff off my desk fast enough. You need to take a look at it. And so I go into my investigative producers and I say, guys, there's something here. And everybody starts working on it, and we understand it and develop it. And you have to explain it in a way that people understand, which is they packaged, subprime. It's like putting the ground chuck with the sirloin, and calling it, something even better than that. You know, it's not that. It's all mixed together, and they didn't rate it properly. It wasn't monitored properly, and it was the downfall of our economy 18 months ago.
Okay. Chris Hansen also had some interesting things to say about doing hidden camera investigations in areas and countries that aren't so nice to journalists.
But on a personal level, the thing that impacted me most and really brought me to tears was when we went over to Cambodia and we infiltrated a sex trafficking ring in Cambodia, about 11 kilometers outside of Phnom Penh, in a place called Svay Pak. And to see those girls rescued and then go back 4 years later and to see the improvement in their lives, I mean, that's impact.
And has the industry changed over there, that sex trafficking industry?
It has. It's still there, and it's still, you know, a bad situation. But Svay Pak, as it was, is now a regular village where there is no sex trafficking. These girls who were able to track down are in a school, and they're thriving now. So their lives are completely different. And you know, at the end of the day, that's what we're.
It takes a lot of kahunas to do some of these hidden camera investigations. You know, in the U.S. is one thing, but going to Cambodia, going to places like China and India where they persecute people like this.
Right.
How do you do it? How do you feel? I mean, you can get caught at any moment.
Absolutely. You get in, you make copies of the tapes, and get out.
So there's
always a bit of risk. I mean, these stories, you know, not every story is fraught with danger, but yes, I mean, you know, some of them are. They're expensive, dangerous, and they're hard to do. But if they're easy, everybody would do them, you know. So, you know, we weigh the risk versus the chances of actually getting, you know, what we need, and we take precautions. I mean, we have a, you know, fairly strict security protocol, and we operate whether it's here or overseas. So I've never been in a situation where I've been uncomfortable. Have I been anxious? Have I had my heart in my throat? Absolutely. Have I been sweaty at the immigration checkpoint getting out, knowing that I've got these tapes in my bag? Unquestionably. But, you know, that's part of the job. And if you don't, you know, push the envelope a little bit, you're not going to get those results. You're not going to get hidden camera video of myself and a producer doing a $10 million counterfeit Viagra deal in Hong Kong. I mean, you're going to do that sitting in your office. I mean, you make phone calls all day long, but unless you get on the plane, go to the place, do the deal, set it up, accomplish it, keep your act together, and get it back, it doesn't count.
What do you say to people in college right now who are aspiring to be journalists, whether on television or radio or in print? What do you tell them? How is the industry changing?
Well, I think the industry is changing in a couple different ways. You are going to have to feed more information to different places. In other words, when I was working for TV 10 Action News in Lansing, I did my stories for TV 10 Action News in Lansing. You will have to be able to shoot your own stuff digitally when needed, to edit your own stuff on a computer. Now, I did editing when I was your age, but it was on big 3/4-inch stacks. You're going to have to be able to tell intimate stories, for instance, if you're doing something like healthcare, by embedding with a family who's having a healthcare issue and showing that, you know, in an up-close and personal way. You're going to have to write stuff for the website. You're going to have to cut another shorter video clip for the website. You're going to have to turn the camera on yourself and say, you know, this is what's going on right now, so you can use that as a promotional clip on the web when you get ready to air the actual story. So it's you're going to have to do more stuff, and you're going to have to be good at technology that perhaps I didn't have to deal with 20 years ago.
Do you see shows like Dateline, people who do these type of investigations, you see is it growing? And how is media, that type of media growing?
I think it is. We've had a very good year this year. We had a staff meeting the other day where our boss said, you know, the numbers are trending up. People are watching. The network sees us as a valuable asset. Keep it going. We want more and better results. But, you know, there was all this talk 2 or 3 years ago about, you know, the news magazine thing had run its course and whatever, blah, blah. But it's still there. I mean, good, solid, investigative enterprise reporting that informs and entertains is always going to have a place.
So you think that people who maybe not coming to the speech tonight you know, he's not a journalist. He works for TMZ type, Dateline. It's not real journalism. What do you think of that? Are you a real journalist? Do you see yourself as a respectful journalist?
Yeah, I mean, I will put my body of work up against, you know, anybody in the business. And, you know, I've always said, you know, a sports analogy. I mean, we have doubles, triples, and home runs. And some of the home runs are grand slams. And not every story can be a 12-month investigation. Some we turn around in 2 to 3 days. The Vandersloot story we did the other day. So it's a combination of things, you know, and different stories are going to impact people in different ways. But, I mean, you know, TMZ is a whole different deal. That's not what we do. I mean, you know, we do real news and real investigations.
You watch TMZ, though, don't you?
I don't know. It's entertaining. I mean, you know, they've got a right to do what they do.
Right.
And quite honestly, when it comes to a story like Michael Jackson or something like that, they're usually spot on.
Well, Chris Hansen blindsided me, and I had to do something I didn't want to do. Well, I appreciate you coming on Mondays at Midtown.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
And if we can,
I hear you do a very mean Keith Morrison and Chris Hansen impersonation.
Do I? I mean, we could probably do it. It's a small crowd here. We might be able to do it. But I'll do that if you get up and we can see who's taller. Because we had some debate on it.
Happy to do that. All right, let's go.
Let's do the taller first.
Are we going to do back-to-back?
I think that's the best way to do it.
Well, what kind of shoes are you wearing?
Well, I'm wearing... Can you guys get this thing? Maybe we should rotate maybe this way here. Hold on. Let's rotate this way. Hold on, here we go.
All right. You know,
I'm wearing normal shoes.
I'm older than you,
The question
so
is, what type of shoes are you wearing? I don't know what type of
There's no shoe.
Chris is taller? Well, that's just great. Well, you can go ahead and leave them.
My hair is bigger, that's why.
Well, but I can't you go there. So I guess we could, well, you're welcome. I guess we could do...
Keith Morrison, let's hear it.
Right now. It was a sunny day in Piedmont, Oregon, until little Sally Walker went for a walk on the beach. And the thing with Keith Morrison is everything's so dramatic. A little bumper to commercial, you're like, well, why was the librarian involved? Shouldn't she be checking out books? It keeps on, you keep it going, so.
Indeed.
Well, you know.
That's really quick.
Well, we can do it. We were always thinking, you know, when we had dinner with you, we'd be like, this is awkward. This is one of the most awkward things I've ever done in life.
But it could be good on your resume, real.
Well, that's going to be great. Let's just do what I usually do when I do these situations. I'd be like, it's just so funny you're being right here doing Chris Hansen's impression. All right. You ready for this? Okay. It always amazes us how many times to catch a predator heirs, somebody always falls into the trap that leads them to county jail. Take this man, Daniel Polito. Great job. Really appreciate you being on the show.
It was a pleasure.
Thank
Good luck with everything.
Well, that was obviously one of the most awkward things I've ever done. Well, it's political time. And we're joining us now as our lead political correspondent and all-around good person, I would say, JPJ, John Paul Johnson. Good to see you, sir.
You as well.
All right, we got some numbers coming out, record-breaking numbers. $1.2 billion has been raised just by congressional candidates through June for this election. It's a lot of money.
Running for Congress is a big business.
Yeah, maybe we should, you know, bail out. Well, we don't have to bail out that industry. Maybe we should shift all of our economic policies there. But what do the Democrats have to do for this election? I mean, they're clearly not, you know, getting as much money as Republicans, but their president is a Democrat. So,
well, the third-party expenditures are one of the big things that are helping Republicans this year. If you look at the RNC, chaired by Michael Steele, they haven't been bringing in as much money as the DNC, ran by Tim Kaine. If you look at the RGA, however, which is ran by Haley Barbour, governor of Mississippi, they have brought in close to $40 to $50 million, which is going to go to a lot of governor's races, which Republicans are up in. If you look at the DCC as compared to the RNCC, the Democrats are all raising them. So in the traditional sectors of raising money, Democrats are actually doing better, but the third-party expenditures are actually crushing Democrats right now.
Interesting. And real quickly, the Fox News versus Robin Carnahan lawsuit. Yes. What's going on there? I mean, if you watch the ad, you're like, what's the big deal?
You can look at it in two ways. On one hand, you understand why Chris Wallace is upset. It does make it seem as though he is a de facto endorsement for Robin Carnahan because he's taking some hard hits at Roy Blunt. But you can also look at it from the Carnahan standpoint, saying this is free public airwaves. You made the comments on television. Anytime a Republican runs something about a Democrat, you don't see Fox News running, you know, to go get a lawyer to file a lawsuit. So I think this one will be shot down pretty quick. I don't think it's going to help Robin Carnahan's campaign, but I do think she'll win the lawsuit.
Interesting. You know, it's always good to see you, JPJ. Politics is nothing like is nothing without you.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Well, our own Avita Caldwell sat down with a lieutenant from the St. Louis City Police Department and talked about crime on campus.
Joining me in the studio now is Lieutenant Anthony Rask of the 9th District St. Louis Police. Lieutenant Rask, after criminal incidents are reported to campus police, are they fully turned over to city police for further investigation, or do both departments still work together on the cases?
Well, ultimately, the police department is responsible for any criminal activity. But I will tell you, for the few incidents that does occur on campus, we do work hand in hand with campus security. I know that your campus security works very closely with our detective bureau.
Prior to making the decision to come into SLU, some current students were skeptical about attending because of the media's portrayal of crime in the city. What are some of the things the 9th District do in order to ease the fears of some college students and even the parents? Is there an increase of police in the area because it's a campus or two-man police cars?
Well, as I said before, you have very few incidents on campus. The campus security does a great job of being visible with their bike patrols and their roving patrols. But on top of that, the 9th District, we put out 3 officers that walk a foot beat. One of the officers walks Grand Avenue, which is the middle of the campus. I have another officer that walks a foot beat on the east end, which encompasses the Chaffetz Arena. And then a third officer walks pretty much the north end of the district on Lindell Boulevard.
What's the most frequent crime that occurs in the 9th District?
Car break-ins.
Go ahead.
Car break-ins. And the way to prevent that, for the most part, is for the students to not leave anything in their vehicles that are visible. Be it a GPS, book bags, computers, anything that's visible is just an easy invitation for these guys to break in.
How can students be involved in crime prevention and possibly safeguard themselves against crime?
The biggest thing is not be afraid to call if they see something out of the ordinary. I would recommend walking in groups. If you're alone on campus and you're afraid to walk somewhere, don't be afraid to contact your campus security for an escort. The biggest thing is to get involved. If you see something, call.
Thank you for taking the time out to do this interview. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
No problem.
Pretty compelling stuff. We'll be right back with the panel. And welcome back. Well, it's time for the Power Panel segment, and again, always great people on the panel. Starting first with Alderwoman Marlene Davis of the 19th Ward. Marlene, great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Brett Kostreski, who he is our senior political analyst / commentator. Brett.
Thanks, Mark.
And of course, the wild card this week, Mike McHugh, textbook writer. Mike.
Hi, Mark.
Good to see you all.
Good to see
Well,
you.
let's first talk about the economy. It's all in everyone's mind. Jobs, I have to find a job here shortly. Hopefully it's not going to be too tough. Tim Geithner had an interview today with the USA Today, and he said it's going to take time for the economy to start to kick back up, rather, and that businesses need confidence to hire more people. Marlene, in your ward, do you think businesses need confidence right now?
Well, I'm blessed that they're not waiting for the confidence to hit them upside the head. Currently, I have a lot of economic development going on. We have new buildings being built as we speak. We have new businesses moving in. I just talked to the building inspector last week, and the number of building permits have increased since last year.
So you're seeing some positive trends.
It's a positive trend.
But that's in your ward. What about the rest of the city?
And the city as a whole is doing well, if we think about it. There's almost no part of the city of St. Louis that you cannot look at and find new development, new businesses opening. So some people have gotten over it and they've taken a chance, they're investing their money. What I look at now is those who actually mold our economy from behind the doors in the back room. And they're the ones who are trying to, create a scenario that says there's not enough money, we can't make it. But if you look at every corporation that we look at, even the car dealerships that we actually bailed out, they're all doing much better.
So you're saying that the buck stops here, no more money?
No, I think we need to end it.
All right, Brett?
Well, it's easy for Tim Keitner. He says it's going to take time. I mean, we've been waiting for 2 years for this economy to pick up, and I think what we're seeing now is just so much uncertainty in the business market, and I think this administration is very much responsible for that. These companies have more cash on hand than they have in 30 years. There's over $2 trillion just sitting in the bank, and they have the money to generate, and that's the money that's going to stimulate growth, not the money that the government is using through taxes. So these companies don't know what to expect yet. They don't know if taxes are going to go up in January. They don't know if healthcare mandates are going to change. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market, and I think the administration's a big part of that, and I think this administration does need to start taking a more pro-business and a more certain tone towards the private sector.
Mike, you write textbook. What's the textbook going to say about this history, or our generation rather, and this bailout?
Well, we actually write a lot about it in the business textbook I work on. Uncertainty is the key word. There was a article that I read not too long ago about how consumer demand is gaining steam again, it's rolling down the hill, but too many companies are nervous that it's temporary, it's not going to be permanent. So when they have an increase in demand and they need more workers, then they hire temporary workers from agencies, and that's common in the beginning stage of recovery and in the end of a downturn. But what's happening now is that usually when you're a temporary worker, you work at a place for 6 months, then they give you a job as a reward for your good faith and for your skill. But now these temporary workers are staying on as temporary workers, and it's kind of bringing in what some are calling like a new normal in the economy, where ostensibly in the future sometime maybe a lot of our workforce will be based on temporary hours, making them easier to cut away when they need them or bring in when they need to too. So it's really going to what Ms. Davis said. It's really in the hands of the businesses because the confidence is there, things are growing, but they just need to, I think, spend some of those reserves they have, and it's really in their ballpark to take this on.
The Wall Street Journal had an article today talking about same kind of deal with the businesses kind of holding on to money, and they're afraid about healthcare. They have to pay more for healthcare, or these small businesses have to pay more for healthcare. Do you see that as an issue in this current day economy? Is that the healthcare bill that they passed earlier this year?
Absolutely not. Most of the large changes in the healthcare initiative will not happen for another 10 to 12 years. So if we're going to sit here on our thumbs for 12 years and do nothing, then that makes no common sense. The law that is changing someday this week, I believe it is really helping families and children who have pre-existing conditions. It allows, like the college student, to stay on their family's health insurance until they're age 26. So there's nothing that is going to hurt the business, and especially small business. And when I analyze this, it gives them an opportunity to have a tax incentive if they want to provide health care for their employees, and before they never had that. And we also have a way now to actually identify different ways for families to insure themselves. So if they had a policy with someone 5 years prior and they like that policy, you can transfer it to the next business that you go to. So there's a lot of things that have been, I think, clouded in this issue. It has not been clear to the public. Most people did not take time to read it or really listen clear enough to understand it. And it's a shame that we would put this fear out here for small businesses when they actually could benefit from it.
Brett, do you believe mandates are the way to go?
Absolutely not. And I mean, you can argue that about the constitutionality of mandates, but either way, it can't be good for business. And we saw that these healthcare insurance companies were talking about their 20+% premium increases coming in next year. Now, a lot of that's due to different reasons, but they attributed, depending on the company, between 7 and 10% to the new healthcare bill, because now they have to cover these pre-existing conditions. They have to cover kids up to age 26. And I mean, these things all have to be paid for somehow, and the company isn't going to take it out of their own pocket to pay for it. They're going to pass it on to their consumers. So you see these companies, small businesses who may have to insure, small businesses who don't know what number it's going to be. I mean, there is, and I think it goes to the anti-business sentiment that's out there from Washington. Now, whether this bill is going to hurt business or not, but that's definitely arguable. But I think the tone being set by mandates and such bills as this is definitely what's keeping our economy from robustly growing.
Mike, the textbook industry, I mean, it's pretty small. It's a small business that you work for, correct?
It's hard to. It's almost impossible to get into now. It's limiting to just a few certain books. I was lucky enough to get in and write for one.
So, do you see healthcare as an issue for the employees that textbook agency?
Well, for my industry, I'm not entirely sure. I don't think it's anything different from any other industry. Really, I don't subscribe to the logic that that trying to rein in insurance companies with legislation is going to all of a sudden like unchain them, and they're going to cause just a wave of spending destruction on consumers. I think that there has been, I agree with Ms. Davis, there's been a lot of confusion over the healthcare bill, and right now it's just the pre-existing conditions. You got to cover up to 26, and then you are having like employers are subsidizing just a health insurance plan, which I only see as good. I don't see it as really lashing out on insurance companies or the consumer. I think that that time will tell, and it will prove itself to be a worthwhile decision instead of just sitting around and waiting for the system and for the insurance companies to work it out on their own.
Interesting. Well, I'm sure we'll be watching the developments in that story for the next 10, 15 years. Real quickly, to end this conversation, we were having a good conversation in the back here in our green room about, as I labeled it, brick talk. New York Times had an interesting article today focusing on St. Louis and Alderman Sam Moore, who's a neighboring ward of yours, about the issue of people setting fire to abandoned buildings just to get bricks. And these bricks are pretty valuable to other parts of the country. Do you see this as a huge issue for the city of St. Louis?
It is a huge issue, and it comes in so many different forms of public safety. When you look at an abandoned house sitting next door to a house that's in good condition, being well kept, of course, and we can even talk about insurance on that, the insurance cost for that homeowner is higher. There's no doubt about that. And then the threat of safety. We have people who squat in those homes and live in them. We have drug dealers who sell from those homes. We have so many things that could actually be a public safety. But in the long run, it also deals with our economy. If you think about it, I think the article said we had about 11,000 vacant buildings sitting in our community. Well, if I could put a multiplier on that, and those were buildings that were being occupied on one level or another, whether it was a $50,000 priced home or a $300,000 priced home, think how much better our economy would be. Think about the sales tax we would collect from those families, the real estate taxes we would collect that would go to the public schools. Let's think about all those things and the funds that would be spent to rehab and occupy those homes. So we're not being very smart about this, and we need to do something about it.
Right. What does the city do to handle this issue? You get a lot of vacant buildings with valuable brick, St. Louis brick, that has a long history.
Well, it's really a shame to see, and I think the brick issue really does, as Alderwoman Davis said, stem from the abandoned buildings problem. That's really the greater issue. And I mean, these bricks could definitely be a boon for the city if we could somehow. I know cities in the Rust Belt where I'm from, such as Detroit, Cleveland, and Buffalo, who have lost such huge populations, have so many abandoned homes, thousands of them, that the city is taking it upon themselves to go in and demolish them. And in St. Louis, if that's a possibility, you could see that brick be sold, and that could definitely help the city out with its ever lessening revenue and in this climate. So there are definitely, but it's definitely a huge problem. And when you have so many abandoned homes, what do you do? I can never really be sure what the answer to that question is.
Mike, you know a lot about bricks.
Oh yeah, brick expert. Got it all.
Bricks expert / textbook author.
Got it all. But what I really took away from the article was the police department's reaction to it, saying that they were going to raise the penalty for taking and for stealing bricks. And that just seems to be putting the blame where it doesn't need to be. You're not going to deter, like prohibition doesn't. As
You saw how valuable those bricks are. I'll risk it. What, are you going to raise it from $400 to $600? Okay, I'll still risk it to get these pallets of bricks.
I don't
steal bricks.
Yeah, I don't see it being an effective deterrent. What needs to be done is not reactive, but a proactive stance that either puts people back in the homes or clears away the area and does what Detroit and Cleveland are doing with urban farming, turning just vast amounts of of urban decay and blight and things that are, like neighborhoods that just aren't coming back. Detroit especially, because there's just miles and miles of it, and they're demolishing it all. And putting in its place like greenhouses where you're going to make farmers markets in that area. It's going to be local organic food that you can sell outside the city. It's just there's ways to turn all of that into a viable economic source. But I don't think reacting against the poor, starved people who are taking these bricks is a proper way to address the situation.
Well, I think it's an interesting topic, and I promise you, we will spend a lot of time on this with Mondays in Midtown. We're going to look into this brick deal and hopefully get up there and ride around with Alderman Davis and see how bad that issue is. Because if you read the story, and I invite you to read the story as well in the New York Times today on Monday, it's a very interesting story, and I think that the fact that they brought it to the nation's attention proves to be an important reason for that. So we'll appreciate you being on the panel this week, folks. We'll hopefully see you soon, and I believe right now it's time for Lyle's Corner.
Whoa, it's Lyle's Corner, boys and girls, come on down. You'll learn about cool things around the town. It's Lyle's Corner!
Lyle's Corner should just be all three of us with our shirts off, and just staring at the camera for a good solid 45 seconds of awkwardness. I don't know if that should be recorded or not, but
these two men are about to dance. Did you know that? This game is called slack-jaw dancing. You look into your opponent's eyes and you maintain a slack jaw. Any aversion of eye contact or smiling is strictly prohibited. That person will lose.
Wait, do we have no music? Wait. We have no music.
Con, you got me. Con, get me out.
St. Louis. Now it's time for Things to Do Around the Lou with Lyle. This week at SLU, it's homecoming week, so don't forget, Wednesday, Day in the Quad, Movie in the Quad. Friday, Tonic, or Soda Pop, or Alka-Seltzer is going to be here to perform. This is all presented by SAB, so don't forget. Also, don't forget all week to be voting for your homecoming king and queen. Colin Shevlin is an awesome guy. Let me tell you, he's on the ballot. Look for his name, click it, and while you're there, click Kasha Sullivan's. Perfect duo. So that's all today.
Or you can vote for Lyle Wilson for homecoming king.
It's Lyle's Corner!
Now remember, the views expressed on Lyle's Corner don't necessarily reflect those of Mondays in Midtown, or the University, or Father Biondi. Well, right now it's time for the Spotlight on St. Louis. And this week's Spotlight on St. Louis is a good one. Some balloons. We got some pictures from Devin Kostreski, no relation to Brett. Look at these pictures from the Balloon Glow in Forest Park this past weekend. Oh, wow. Those are cool. Look how those balloons light up like that. Very, very interesting. Thanks, Devin, for those pictures. Well, we'll always bring you up to date on what's going on in St. Louis here on Mondays in Midtown. Well, we have some viewer mail. You can always write to us, mondaysinmidtown@gmail.com. This viewer mail comes from Paul Merrill in Cleveland, Ohio, although he's from St. Louis. Hey, Mark J., if you could meet anyone in the history of the United States, who would it be and why? Well, thanks for writing, Paul. I would probably meet Richard Nixon, 37th President of the United States. Why? I think he's a pretty interesting person. And his personality, I'd like to tap into that. So that's very interesting. If you want to write to us, mondaysinmidtown@gmail.com. Well, that's our show for this week. And to close, we're going to play you some stuff from the B-52s concert that I took. So there's no copyright infringement. You can see Fred Schneider and the whole gang do their little weird thing on the stage underneath the arch this past July 4th. Have a good night. Drive safely. It's Monday. We're open. We're open. It's Monday. Edgy. Dun-it. Dun-na-na-na-na-na-na.
Did you do the intro for Lyle's Corner?
Dun-na-na-na. Dun-na-na-na-na. Have a good night. Drive safely. Just looking at some papers. Do my thing. Do my thing. Look at the papers. Okay, looks good. Sign it off.
The Storm Alert Weather Team.
Is that fine? Yeah. Is that going to work? Amanda? Uh-oh. Edgy. You're on the edgy camera right now.